Guys, I'm presenting to you Jerry Zivic, who has been a Social Security for Disabilities attorney for a number of years. I'll let him speak about it. We will talk today about Social Security for Disability, Jerry's book. We will touch upon different areas of consumers that need SSD for their livelihood, for their income. Jerry will attempt to answer some of the questions that we've got from our consumers.
Hi, my name is Jerry Zivic, Z-I-V-I-C. For over 30 years, I practiced Social Security disability law, and actually my office, Zivic Solutions, appeared in every state across the United States. And I'm very proud of what I did over 30 years. We helped an extraordinarily number of people, and to this day, my work impacts people's lives. Because of the work I did, people were able to get health insurance, Medicare, people were able to put food on their tables, people were able to put a roof over their head, and it was just really very gratifying work. If you're watching this, I'm sure you have an interest in Social Security disability. Before we start the interview, I wanted to go over the highlights of what you'll be able to find in this interview. There's a lot of interesting and very meaty advice that you can find. We're going to talk about how to qualify for Social Security disability. We're going to talk about a thumbnail definition of what Social Security disability really is, how sick you have to be, how and when to file a claim, when or if you need to hire an attorney, the best way to help Social Security find in favor of you and pay you your money as quickly as possible, what you need to have to submit to Social Security, how to keep your Social Security benefits, tips about how to best use medical records, the relationship between your private long-term disability insurance company and Social Security disability, and how to protect yourself from Social Security scams.
Jerry, thank you very much. So, what is Social Security for Disabilities?
No agency touches upon people more than the Social Security Administration. Not everybody pays taxes, but if you work, you're paying a Social Security tax. When you get your paycheck, everybody knows something. They see FICA. Well, FICA is your Social Security premium. And most times when you talk about Social Security, people think, oh, it's my retirement benefit. Well, Social Security is really a lot more than just a retirement benefit. They have a program, disability program, and there's two parts to this disability program. There's Title II and there's Title 16. Title II is for people that have worked during their lives, and they gather what are known as quarters of coverage. For every 3 months that you work, you gain a quarter of coverage. You have to make a certain amount of money in order to get that quarter of coverage and put into the system. It's like paying an insurance premium. You pay for the insurance, you get the policy. And Title 16, which is commonly known as SSI, these are for people that really haven't had jobs and they have very little resources. And so those are the two basic disability programs. And when you combine both programs, the Title II and the Title 16, in the United States, there are probably, it's hard to get an exact statistic, but there are over 15 million people collecting these types of benefits. And the number will only go up now that we're in a recession. The last time we had a recession, the numbers went up dramatically. And I'm certain that the numbers are going to go up dramatically now because sometimes people have jobs and they have what is known as sympathetic employment. They've had a job and their employer's known them for a long time, and they make a lot of accommodations to keep them on the job. But because of their age, they're never going to be able to find another job. If you're 62 and you had all these accommodations for a company you worked for 25 or 30 years, it's very hard for another employer to make accommodations. And so you'll never get another job. So these people are now probably filing for Social Security disability as well. And they, depending on their problems, they might actually be eligible for it.
So what does it mean to be disabled according to the Social Security?
Okay, well, to be disabled, according to the Social Security Administration, they have a very long definition, but I've been able to boil it down to a thumbnail definition, unless you want to go through all the steps. But I don't think you're looking for a nap this afternoon. What does it say about my life that I know all this stuff, though? But the thumbnail definition is the inability to do any kind of work for a period of a year or more. In other words, that you're not able to do any type of work because it's a physical or mental, and it can be either a physical or mental impairment, or it can be a combination of those two impairments.
So, if the person feels that they are entitled for Social Security for disabilities, what should be the first steps? How shall person go about applying for Social Security for disabilities?
Well, I think the first thing that you should do, I think you should determine whether or not you're capable of doing anything at all for a period of a year or more. A lot of times when I was working as an attorney, people would call me and they would say, well, I can't do my old job. Well, it's not whether or not you can do your past job. It's whether or not you can do anything at all. Let's say take a carpenter. He can't lift 2x4s anymore, but does he have a skill? Can he do something else? So, and it's not whether or not somebody will hire you even. It's only whether or not you have a capability to do that work. So if you believe that you're unable to do any kind of work for any type of reason, you should apply for Social Security disability benefits. And what I really want to stress, what is really important, if it's hard to know, am I going to be sick for a whole year or not? But the point is, Social Security, it's not an easy benefit to get. And better you should get in line now to have them start to work on your case, because it's going to take a while. The average time, the last I looked, across the country, it's probably up almost to 2 years for them to make a resolution on your case. So you have to be, this is not something quick. Some people get lucky and they get paid right away. It's not necessarily the case. So you want to file. Doesn't cost anything to file. There's nothing that stops you from, withdrawing your case. If you make a recovery, you just send a Social Security letter and say, hey, I'm all good. Thanks for your help. I mean, they work for us. We all pay taxes. And, so there's nothing wrong with filing the claim. And there's a couple of ways to file a claim. You want to file. You can do the way Social Security encourages people to do it. They encourage you to do it online. For myself, I'm not a big believer in doing it online. I'm petrified of endless hacking, and Social Security has problems with hacking. And it's a tip I can give people later on what they should do to protect their retirement benefit. But but they're going to encourage you to do it online because it's easiest for them. But what you can do is you can go online and you can print up the forms. And then what I encourage people is to print up the forms you need. Then take your time, sit down at a table or a desk, write out all the answers. And then what I encourage people to do is mail it in to Social Security. You can't go into a district office right now, only if there's a dire need that you need to go in because of the pandemic. They've closed all their offices, so you just can't go in. But it's really, this is the best way to do it anyways, because you have your time, you take your time, you fill it out carefully, and you mail it in. The other way to do it is you can call them up at 1-800-772-1213, and they're required to take your application by phone. They will give you a hard time doing this, okay, because it's just the way they are. They have all kinds of rules, and in my 30 years experience, I found that they routinely have a very difficult time following a lot of their rules. So know your rights and exercise those. And remember too, at the end of the day, as I said a minute ago, these people work for us. We're taxpayers, and they're supposed to be there to help us. So if you're having a difficult time, I wouldn't even encourage asking for a supervisor. Just hang up and call again, because we all experience in this life. We all have problems. We all are calling customer service for some reason. And you just know that there's some people that are really helpful and some people that aren't. So if you're just getting one of those people that aren't going to help you, just give it up and start over.
Your recommendation is if you get a person on another line, on the line with you, that is not helpful, just hang up and call back again to the same number, trying to get another person. That's very interesting comment. And you said calling the manager would not help?
No, what'll end up happening, And I'm sure you experience this in other parts of your life. You know, when you're unhappy with your customer service rep, oh, God, can I talk to your supervisor? And you'll wait 10 minutes and you'll wait 15 minutes. And ultimately, what happens to the call? You tell me, Michael.
It drops. Yes, I know.
Yeah. You know, the call is going to be dropped. So you will have spent an hour or so of your life to go nowhere. So just, keep calling back until you get the somebody that really you feel knows how to help you. But that's why I'm a big believer. Go online, type in Google Social Security disability forms, and Google knows what this is. They will take you. They will give you all the form numbers that you need. Print them up, handwrite them out, and that way you'll have a copy of what you sent in. You won't be wondering, oh, I sent it off in the internet. Everybody thinks if it goes in the internet, it's good to go. But things get lost in cyberspace. I analogize it to a sock in the dryer. Things just disappear sometimes. So if you file your application, and when you file your application by mail, do it in a way where you can prove delivery of that item. And people routinely say, well, I'm going to use certified mail. If I had a nickel for every time I never got the green card back from the certified mail, and I'd have, I can't tell you how much money I would have, but it would be a substantial amount of money. I'm a big believer in United Parcel Ground. You get proof it was delivered, and it's important. And whenever you deal with Social Security, and whenever you want to make sure you're filing something with Social Security, even though it's an expense, and even though it's going to take time, do it in a way where you have proof of delivery, because the number of times when people lose and you're filing an appeal or you need to prove that something's there, endlessly Social Security will say, oh, we don't have that document. You never sent it in. And then you can say, well, I've got something here. I've got a green card, or I've got something from UPS that says Susie signed for this on November 1st, some date. Oh, here it is. We found it. So you have to protect yourself. It's a situation, and I think this is you can analogize this to any time you deal with any government agency. You want to do their job for them. You want to lay it out. Maybe it's a jaded view, but it works. You want to lay it out. You want to make it in a way that it's very easy for them to do their job. So it's there. It's printed up, and you've got proof it's there. And then they can't argue with you.
Once you mailed all your documentation in, and let's say Social Security is not agreeing with your statements as far as they're not giving you Social Security for disability, who do you turn to? Now as you are retired, right? Who would you recommend people to go to? An attorney who may help, or maybe your firm is still working. You tell us where shall people go to try to defend their rights?
Well, I think what you want to do is you want to realize this whole process. It's sort of like baking a cake. You have to add certain ingredients in order for the cake to come out correctly. And it starts actually at the very beginning. It would be great if you could hire an attorney or in the beginning of the process, but I don't know necessarily that that's the best thing for people to do, quite frankly, because they're sort of like a push and a pull. Attorneys get paid out of past due benefits owed, and it's capped at a certain number. So there's a bit of a disincentive for an attorney to really want to pursue your case vigorously in the beginning, because it will earn less money. And it's so I think actually and if you think about it, why should you go out and hire an attorney in the beginning? This is a government agency. The government agency is supposed to work for us. Let's do what it takes, so maybe it'll work to our advantage, but let's set them up in such a way that we make sure that they can pay the case. So what you want to do is you want to collect all your evidence yourself for Social Security. By law, Social Security is supposed to collect evidence for you. You're supposed to give them a list of all the doctors and all your medical providers that that have treated you for your problem, and they're supposed to go out and get those records. Well, let me tell you, in reality, they're very weak at doing that. So what you should do is you should go out and you should collect your own records make a copy before you send them out, and send them into Social Security yourself. And if you really want to do yourself a favor, you want to outline what's in that. Here's a 20-page record of something, there's all these test results and things like that. Boil it down to a paragraph or two and stick it right on top of that document. Because that way, when somebody's reviewing their file, they say, oh, here's Jerry Zivic's disability. I can rule on this very, very quickly because he's outlined this for me. And if you'll do that work for them, you'll do yourself a big favor. And I'll make a suggestion to you right now, too, and to anybody. Whenever you go to any medical provider, you should always keep a record of where you've been for any kind of treatment. Because let's say 5 or 6 years from now, you determine that you really were sick at this time, you just didn't realize it. Are you going to remember you saw Dr. X, Dr. Y, Dr. Z? Absolutely not. You won't remember. But if you keep an ongoing record of where you've been, then you'll always, know about it and where you've been. And what I actually think you should do, buy yourself one of those cheap spiral notebooks that we used to use in high school, and just make a note. I went to see Dr. Jones for whatever, even a dentist. Every medicine you take, actually medicines, every year you should go to your pharmacy, wherever you're getting any medications, and get a printout of all the medications you've taken for that year. Just put it away. Hopefully you never need it. But if you going back, you'll never remember and you'll never be able to get a complete record. And also, I'm a big believer that whenever anybody goes to the doctor now, they should say, I want a copy of my medical records. They'll look at you like you're crazy. Blah, 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 blah. Think about this. Most people, when they go to the doctor, they spend more time in their computer nowadays than actually examining you. So they have these records. And so ask for it right then and there. Because when you ask for it a year from now or 2 years from now, that's going to cost you $5 million to get that record, even though it's all computerized. They've turned it into a money-making process. There are companies out there that do nothing but copy medical records for doctors' offices. And they may, and everybody's making money off of you, the patient. These are records that you bought and paid for when you went in. Why should you be charged again? But if you're in a situation where you have to pay for medical records later, understand this. Most doctors' offices, not most, a lot of doctors' offices and a lot of these record copying companies overcharge. Almost every state in the union has a law that says if you're using these medical records to apply for Social Security disability, they can only charge, there's a cap on what they can charge. So you should make sure, if you're in Alabama, if you're in Illinois, you should look at what the state allows the doctors to charge on a situation like that. So don't be overcharged for those records, but just get the records right away and just make it a part of your life when you go. You'll either use them or you won't use them during the course of life.
Jerry, understood. Another question. So Social Security for disability at some age converts to normal Social Security. Is my understanding correct? Well, automatically, once a person reaches 65 or 67, it converts. Am I correct or am I wrong?
You are correct. It used to be 65. It's a moving target now. They call it retirement age. Whenever that current retirement age is, which is a moving target now, could be 80 by 2 years. Who knows? But that's a whole. We can talk about that philosophically for a long period of time. But so you can't get disability and your retirement benefit. It's one or the other. So whatever your retirement age is, it converts automatically. You become eligible for Medicare, but there's a caveat on that Medicare, and it's so unfair. You're entitled to that Medicare 2 years after your onset date. So it's a situation where you have to wait a period of time until you're eligible for Medicare. So you're without care. You're without health insurance, so you have to take care of yourself.
So that's very interesting. You apply today for Social Security. For disability, I have to wait for 2 years for my application to be approved. And that, when you mention onset date, is that from the time of the application, or is that from the time when the Social Security for disability was actually given to me?
It's the time that they determine the day that they determine you became disabled. So let's say let's say you became disabled June 30th, then you applied for benefits January 1st the following year, but they determined that you became disabled from June 30th. So it's a period of time. The waiting period is from that time, from June 30th until the waiting period is up, not from the date you filed.
Understood, Jerry. Jerry, I also know that you have created the book. What are you trying to achieve with the book?
There you go. I actually have the book. I'm very proud of this book. I actually wrote it with my son. What it is we wrote a book on how to keep your Social Security disability benefits. I mean, as you can see, we're just touching like the very surface. We're at the foothills of what's a really big mountain here, and how to keep your benefits is very important. We note in this book the day you start to work to keep your benefits is the day you get your benefits. And people think, well, I have my Social Security disability. It's not a lifetime benefit. By law, Social Security is required to review these cases every few years. The actuality of it is they don't do it a lot of times because they don't have the money to do that. But every now and then they get subject to politics or whatever, they get all worked up and they start to review claims. In theory, they're reviewing 1 million claims each year. And the kicker with when your case is reviewed is you cannot hire somebody to help you keep your benefits. And so you're stuck to do this on your own. And somebody might say, what do you mean I can't hire an attorney to help me? Well, the reality of it is when you get a note, you're going to get a letter from Social Security saying, dear Mr. Jones, we're reviewing your case. You have 10 days to decide. Do you want to keep your benefits coming while we review your case? Or do you want us to stop making these payments, and if you win, we'll pay them to you later? Well, most people on Social Security disability need to keep that monthly money coming in. So you're in a situation where you have money that's coming all of the time. So there's no back benefit. If you remember, we talked about attorneys get paid out of back benefits and there's a disincentive. Well, there's no back benefit to pay an attorney if he wins your case. So if there's no back benefit to pay an attorney, that attorney's chance of getting paid is very slim because most people on disability are on a budget. So let's say they win their case, they're not going to be able to pay somebody, say $50 a month even, to make up for a $4,000 fee or a $5,000 fee. So because there's no way to get paid, no attorney that understands this area of the law will actually take the case. And what you have to run from, and I've seen this over the years, people will call me and say, I had an attorney who wanted to charge me a $2,000 retainer to take this case. Run from this person. All fees that any attorney charges on a Social Security case, they have to be approved by the government. So you can't charge money up front because it's not an approved fee. So that person clearly doesn't understand what's going on. Now, there are nuances and ways to put maybe money in escrow and things like that, but it gets very overly complicated. So you're in a situation where you have to help yourself. And so going back to that spiral notebook I talked about, you want to keep if you're awarded your benefit, you want to keep a record of everywhere you've been. You want to you want to know what it is. You want to have those records. So when Social Security comes to review your claim, you want to be able to sit there and say, here are my records. I've been seeing my doctor every 3 months for the past 4 years, and he still says I'm not able to work. But what's interesting is records alone aren't enough. You want to be in a situation where you focus Social Security. They have to determine what's known as your residual functional capacity. They want to determine whether or not you can do another kind of work. They want to determine whether or not they have these things called listings of impairments, whether or not you actually meet the medical listings of impairments. So as part of the book that my son and I wrote, we have a third volume. It's called the Forms Library. It's a big forms library here. And you can only get this one in paperback. Over 20 different forms for over 20 different impairments. It's 127 pages of forms. And these forms are designed to medical provider or doctor specific. So all they have to do is put a check by yes, no, write a word or two, fill in a number. So they don't have to spend a lot of time completing a form because doctors don't like to complete forms. and which is really unfair too if you think about it. It's part of practicing medicine, and you being able to have health insurance, which you're eligible for Medicare if you're on Social Security disability. It's part of your well-being. But you want to get this form book, and you want to be in a situation where you can rip out the form and say, "Here, doctor, all you have to do is fill out this form," and it's all easy for them. I don't think a lot of attorneys' offices are set up to help people from filing an initial claim. And there's no reason, as I said before. So I think there's a disincentive there, and I think you want to be in a situation where there's no reason you can't help yourself. Because if you go out and get all your records and you file all of this, then you're doing whatever an attorney could do. And an attorney and people would routinely call me up because, as I alluded to earlier, there are these huge waiting periods to delays with Social Security. Well, how come it's taking so long for my case? And I must have spent easily 20 to 30% of the calls we got would be explaining people that there are just these huge delays. And in fact, we put in to our instructions and that we explained right away that there are huge delays and it could take years. But as much as you try and let people know, they still need their money and they still need their help. So if you apply for this yourself, and hand Social Security everything, you've made it easy for them to process your claim. In other words, here's all my medical records. You don't have to write to this doctor. You don't have to write to that hospital. Here it is. You can make a decision. You file your claim with Social Security. Who makes that decision? Not Social Security. They send it to every state has what's known as a disability determination service. Okay, there's one in Florida, there's one in Georgia, everyone has their own disability determination service. And they're all run a little bit differently, which is one of the problems with Social Security. Somebody that's, let's say, not disabled in Texas could be disabled in Ohio with the same problems because of for whatever reasons. So think about this. You don't have one disability determination service. You have 50 for all 50 states. So is that nuts? You file your claim, and then it goes to someplace else to get determined. I mean, talk about a Byzantine way of doing things. That's really a strange way of doing that. But you want to be in a situation where somebody can pick it up. It's human nature. Oh, here's this file. Oh, here's all the medical. I can rule it yes or no. Even if it's no, you're ahead of the game because then they can move forward on this case. But if you're waiting for them to have to send for records, and then the doctor's office is going to send them, we'll send you the records when we get our money, and it just months and months of extra layers of waiting putting on. That way, just take the bull by your horns, be your own best advocate, get everything you need, send it into these people, give them an outline, and remember, tell them why you can't do anything at all.
Jerry, let me ask you, I have a follow-up question. So if someone in Ohio received the Social Security for disability, but they choose to move to Florida, are they going to lose their Social Security for disability while doing that? Or are they going to keep it?
No, it's a federal program. So you can actually move out of the country and get your Social Security disability. So once you're awarded the benefits, subject to the continuing disability review, that you will get. Once you get that disability, you can go anywhere, or you can move even while your claim is pending. Routinely, people would move states. That's one of the reasons my office was all across the country. People would move, people relocate. We have a very fluid society.
Jerry, another question. Not everyone is truthful. I'm sure there are people that are running Social Security scams, applying for the Social Security for disability when they're not used to it, when they are not eligible for them. Can you share some stories that you ran into?
I have one story once. This is let me first preface this. There is fraud, but there's fraud in every situation. So but it's not anywhere near as bad as people will think it is. And Social Security is actually working better at rooting out fraud. They're still a long way away from doing something. But once I had a guy that applied for Social Security disability, and then we had to drop the case when we found out he won a golf tournament. And then once I was at a case somewhere. It turns out that the claimant actually golfed with the judge's wife. But just because you're golfing doesn't necessarily mean you're disabled. I actually had a situation once where I was able to get disability for somebody that was a marathoner. This person had MS, and there's a demyelinating nature of MS where it goes and comes. So if you've got MS where it's really bad most of the year, you really can't do anything. And if you had a good couple of weeks or whatever, and you ran a marathon, it doesn't necessarily mean you can work. But I mean, so those are situations. There are actually companies that actually are detectives. There's a synergy where you can get disability insurance from a private insurance carrier, and it used to be that when you go out on sick pay, let's say you work for a big Fortune 500 company, first there's short-term disability, and then there's long-term disability. Almost all of these long-term disability payments are insured by an insurance company. A big insurance company, MetLife, Cigna, somebody like that is insuring that disability. So they actually have their own they will hire detective companies to actually watch people sometimes to make sure that that person is not engaging in activities that will actually preclude them from working. And that's actually something that the taxpayers need to realize. It's sort of bizarre. So you're working for a big company, you're getting what's known as sick pay, but the sick pay is really being funded by an insurance company. Part of the agreement that the insurance company has with the company that they're insuring is they have the right to require the people that apply for Social Security disability the people that are applying for long-term disability, that they're required to apply for Social Security disability. Now think about that. So the taxpayers are actually helping the private insurance companies, because if you get Social Security disability, they're not going to pay you the amount that the government is paying you. And so let's say you're getting $1,000. It's an easy example, and the government, and you get $700 from Social Security. That company then is saving $700 a month. And if you'll take, let's say, a 50-year-old person that was going to work for the next 15 or 16 years, take that money and be an actuary, that's worth a lot of money to an insurance company. So we have a system actually where the taxpayers are helping private insurance, and nobody seems to look at this situation. It doesn't seem correct or fair that we, the taxpayers, are helping fund private insurance companies pay the disability premiums that they owe.
That's actually a very interesting example. Yeah, so you're saying long-term disability insurers actually putting the weight of the expense on the taxpayers
when they can. If they, almost all long-term disability policies require you to apply for Social Security disability, and they're saving all of that money, and it's really it.
So, am I right to assume that long-term disability insurer would be interested to provide an attorney that would actually be defending your case?
There are attorneys and companies out there that help get that money. It's not a good situation, I don't think. And I think if you're going to do that, there should be a different set of rules for them to play by. In other words, if you have a private insurance company that stands to benefit, instead of having the government pay for records and instead of having the government do all this, then the burden should be upon the insurance company to foot some of that bill for those costs. It's just good business. It's good, and think about it, they'd probably be happy to do it because, as I said, from an actuarial basis, this is worth a fortune to them. To get especially a younger person that they're shelling out $2,000 a month, for years to come, it's worth a lot of money. So I think they'd be happy to pay, but they don't have to. They sit back and they let the government do everything for them. So we're all endlessly inundated with spam emails, with phone calls. They'll my mobile carrier now actually lets me in theory know when it's a scam or it's a scam likely. It's my favorite friend calls me all the time. So so but but they have, these scammers have ways to impersonate the government, and you'll get a call, they'll say from Social Security Administration. Understand, Social Security will never threaten you with arrest or legal action if you don't pay a fine. It just doesn't happen. If somebody calls you from Social Security, never ever give out your Social Security number. Never ever even answer with your name, because somebody will record, what's your name? My name is Jerry. What's your last name? Zivic, and they'll put it together and use it for something else. Tell whoever it is from Social Security that you want to be in a situation where you want them to write you the old-fashioned way, snail mail. Never ever trust an email from Social Security. There are endless phishing ways for them to send you stuff where somebody's looking for your information. And understand, no company or anybody can ever promise you that you're going to get a benefit if you pay money. Social Security is never going to ask you to wire transfer or intertransfer or send them a debit card. They're not going to do that. No company is ever going to ask you to demand secrecy for handling a Social Security related problem. And as I said, letters just don't come by email. Do everything snail mail, and make sure that you're actually writing things to an appropriate responding to an appropriate Social Security component. I actually recommend, if you get a snail mail letter, I would mail it back. And once again, proof that you delivered this in a way to the local district office. I would mail it there and let them process it, because you can actually see that office. You can see Social Security Administration on the door there. Because if you're mailing it somewhere in Baltimore or Virginia, you're assuming while it's near the government, it might be. Not necessarily so. So why not be extra careful? So anytime you see anything from the government, don't even bother to answer it. That's for any kind of scam. Don't answer any number that you don't recognize. So just know that don't ever give out your Social Security number, and don't even open up an email that says it's from Social Security, because there's probably all kinds of malware and stuff on there. So it's a big problem with fraud. You can get your own Social Security account online, because if you create your own line account underneath your own Social Security number, you will have that password. So nobody else can pretend to be you, because we can all go, I can find your birthday and I can find your Social Security number. It's all out there. But what I can't find is I can't find your password. So somebody can impersonate you to have access to your online Social Security account. But if you go out and claim your own account and with your own password, then nobody else can claim that, take it out from under you. So that's a way to protect you. As well as what you want to do too, I'm sure you have all your credit accounts frozen, correct?
Experian, with the credit agencies, you mean? Yes.
Okay, as long as you have that frozen, it's good. So that's, you really want to claim and you want to do it for all your kids, your spouse, everybody. Just claim it, be done, and that way nobody else can pretend to be you. So Social Security wants to be able to electronically transfer your retirement benefit into your checking account. Okay, that's fine, but the problem that's happening is your checking account is then over to is in the electronic universe. And once things are going over the electronic universe, you're subject to being hacked. So number one, your money can be hacked on the way to your checking account. That's a possibility. But even worse, it's a situation where that hacker can follow your money into your checking account. So I recommend everybody have a separate checking account simply for their Social Security retirement benefit or disability benefit as well. A separate account, nothing else in there. Whatever your money is, if you've commingled it with other monies, whatever hacker follows that trail in can then clear out all your account. So if you have a single designated account, the only thing you're going to lose is that monthly benefit check. Now, take a step even further. Don't ever do an electronic transfer out of that account. Do it the old-fashioned way. Remember, we used to actually have printed checks, and we'd write a check and we'd mail it or walk it over or do something. I think you want to be in a situation where You want to be your own best advocate for Social Security disability, because even if you go out and hire an attorney, you want to be in a situation, make that person's job easier. Here are all my records. Here's everything I need. Remember to put in your medications. A lot of times people are reluctant to say that they have an emotional problem. If you have an emotional problem and you've been treated for it, go out, admit it. Admit it. Now, let's say a lot of times it's very difficult to get mental health care in this country. It's near impossible to get mental health care. So if you can't afford mental health care, then what you have to do is you have to keep a record. Well, I tried to call the county. I tried to call the city. I tried to call the township, and they weren't able to help me. So you can explain away why you can't get any mental health care. It's not that you didn't try, it's that you're not able to get it. Keep track of why you can't do this. You want to make sure that you have a list of all your medications. Just remember, almost every medication has got a side effect, and a lot of those side effects impact on your ability they make you tired, or they make you nervous. So it impacts on your ability to work. There's something in Social Security called persistence and pace, that if you can't work with persistence and pace, then you're deemed disabled. So you want to be in a situation where I can't concentrate because I take this, I take tranquilizers, and these tranquilizers, numb up my mind so bad that I can't do it. So these are things you want to all keep in mind, and what people routinely do too. People, talk about lying. People routinely lie about their educations. And Social Security is a function of your age, education, and work background. The older you are, the better chance you have. The less education you have, the better chance you have. Work background, the less skills you have, the better chance you have to get benefits.
Jerry, thank you very much. Thank you for this time. Thank you for the interview.